Kenilworth Castle stands on a low hill that was once at the heart of a 1,600-hectare, 4,000-acre park and surrounded by a vast man-made lake. The spectacular ruins, built mostly from the local red sandstone, reveal much of its medieval and Tudor past. The castle is currently managed by English Heritage. The castle is approached from the south by a causeway that acted initially as a dam for a lake, the Mere, and later also as a tiltyard, jousting arena. At its outer end are the remains of the gallery tower, which guarded the entrance and later served as a spectator's gallery for the tiltyard. Beyond is a large defensive earthwork known as the Braes. At the further end of the causeway is Mortimer's Tower, the main medieval entrance to the castle. It was built as part of King John's ring of stone defences for the outer bailey between about 1210 and 1215, in front of a simpler 12th-century gatehouse. Even in their ruined form, both gatehouses are remarkable survivals. Within the castle, on the higher ground to the west, lies the inner court, which is now enclosed by buildings on three sides. The apartments that formerly closed the inner court to the east, King Henry's lodgings, no longer survive. On the north side is the massive sandstone keep or Great Tower, the defensive heart of the castle as well as the main residence during the 12th century. The two main floors were probably built in the 1120s, most of the top stage being added by King John about 1210–15. Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, introduced the large grid windows on the first floor in about 1570–71 to light a great room for entertaining. The north wall was demolished in 1649–50. On the west side is the forebuilding, which Dudley remodelled as an approach to the Privy Garden. Leicester's gatehouse, built by Robert Dudley on the north side of the base court, provided a grand new entrance to the castle, and gave access via a long bridge to the hunting ground created by Dudley, north of the Mere. After the Civil War, the building was converted into a residence, using stonework and interiors from elsewhere in the castle. To the west of the forebuilding is the magnificent sweep of buildings constructed from 1371 by John of Gaunt. His Great Hall is the centerpiece, an architectural masterpiece intended to convey his princely status and aspirations. The interior has vast traceried windows and a huge bay, and originally had no fewer than 6 fireplaces. The walls are decorated with stone paneling and would have displayed prized tapestries. To the right are the remains of the kitchen, twice the size of a normal aristocratic kitchen, and the strong tower, which housed larders and lodgings. At the south end of the Great Hall are the Saintlo Tower and the site of the state apartments. The apartments, which were on the first floor, are now lost, but their elegant entrance oriel survives. At the east end of the state apartments and juxtaposed with the Great Tower to the north is the four-story block known as Leicester's Building, constructed by Robert Dudley in 1571–2 specifically to accommodate the Queen during her progresses through the country. Elizabeth I used the building in 1572 and again in 1575. The block featured large glazed windows with superb views, huge fireplaces, and a luxuriously decorated and furnished chamber for dancing, a passion shared by Elizabeth and Dudley. The house and estate at Baddesley are an incredible survival story. It was the home of the same family, the Ferris, for 500 years. And, despite being short of money, it passed from father to son for 12 generations. The family remained loyal to their Catholic faith through difficult times, risking their lives giving refuge to Catholic priests. The estate survived the Civil War and its aftermath, the Commonwealth under Oliver Cromwell, but at huge financial cost which impoverished the estate for generations to come. The Anglo-Saxon settlement of England began in the mid-5th century after the fall of the Roman Empire. At some point a man called Baeddi, Bada or Bade, probably a farmer from the Avon Valley, drove his cattle up to the Forest of Arden and made a clearing in the wood for extra grazing. It would have been protected from predators with a ditch and wooden palisade. Such a clearing was known as a lea, or ley, hence Baddesley. Some sort of homestead may have been built of timber or stone at a later date. Henry Ferris then tells us that at the time of Edward the Confessor, who reigned from 1042 to 1066, Baddesley was owned by one Rox, a man of some renown. Nothing more is known about Rox, but there is a nearby village of Roxall. After the Norman conquest, the estate was granted to Geoffrey de Worcy, of noble birth, and later to Nigel d'Albany, an Angevinian knight. In about 1100 the then Lord of the Manor, Roger de Mowbray, gave the Baddesley estate to one Walter de Bisegay, of whom very little is known. Baddesley remained in the Bisegay family for 4 generations until Walter's great-granddaughter, Mazera, who was heir to the property, married Sir Thomas de Clinton in about 1290, and Henry Ferris makes it clear that, in that time the name of Baddesley Clinton was begun. In 1438 the site was bought by a lawyer, John Brome, who built some of the house from Arden sandstone quarried on the site. Through his granddaughter, the house passed to the Ferris family. It was Edward Ferris who built much of what we see today, from 1526 onwards. Henry Ferris the Antiquary, who lived at Baddesley from 1564 to 1633, built much of the garden range and the Great Hall. He also added many of the coats of arms to the house, in carved wood and stained glass. In 1590 he rented the house to 2 Catholic sisters, and it was then that it became a hiding place for Jesuit priests. Its 3 priest holes date from this time, but by the end of the 17th century the estate was in decline. It wasn't until the second half of the 19th century, when Marmion Ferris was in residence, that its fortunes picked up again. Marmion married Rebecca Orpen in 1867, and 2 years later they were joined at Baddesley by her aunt, Lady Georgiana Chatterton, and her second husband, Edward Deering. The 4 friends became known as the Quartet, and they devoted their time to restoring the house, painting, writing and to religion.